Much like it is in many areas of business, when you are working as an actor, you're only as good as your last project. While some actors have absolutely destroyed themselves by starring in one particular movie, some actors have led their career onto a steady downfall that they rarely ever recover from by choosing to star in a horror movie. Only rarely does it allow actors to flourish, but to others it can either bring their career to a downfall or stop them in their tracks before they're able to hit dizzying heights. With that in mind, I'm Sean Ferrick for What Culture Horror, and here are 10 actors who ruined their careers by starring in horror movies. Number 10, John Saxon. An Italian-American actor whose career started in the 1950s, John Saxon starred in more than 200 TV and film projects before his unfortunate death in July 2020. He became a teen idol in the 1950s by starring in films such as Rock, Pretty Baby and Summer Love, where he became so popular it was reported that he received around 3,000 fan letters a week. With this fame came an interest from bigger and bigger production companies. In 1958, Universal gave Saxon a role in This Happy Feeling alongside Debbie Reynolds and Kurt Jurgens, and his career skyrocketed from there. In 1973, Saxon was handpicked for the martial arts masterpiece Enter the Dragon, where he starred alongside Bruce Leigh as karate master Roper. However, despite this major success, Saxon made the unusual decision to star in Bob Clark's Black Christmas a year afterwards. This decision severely halted Saxon's career. Afterwards, Saxon started working in low-budget Italian action films and controversial horror movies such as Tenebrae, Cannibal Apocalypse, and A Nightmare on Elm Street all throughout the 80s. Unfortunately, these latter roles are the ones he would be remembered most for, and his career declined pretty quickly until his death. As time went on, he starred in more and more obscure projects, with his last roles being short films in the late 2010s. Number 9, Donald Pleasence. In a career of over 230 performances in film and TV, British actor Donald Pleasence's most iconic role was as James Bond's legendary villain Ernst Stavro Blofeld in 1967's You Only Live Twice. Whilst not remembered as one of the better Bond movies, Pleasence's portrayal of the scarred, soft-spoken, cat-stroking supervillain made the role iconic, leading to numerous parodies and imitations such as Mike Myers' Dr. Evil from the Austin Powers films. With such a prestigious role, it seemed possible that Pleasence was finally going to reach Hollywood stardom after 10 years of starring in low-budget sci-fi and horror films. For a while, his career did flourish with roles in George Lucas's THX 1138, The Pied Piper, where Pleasence starred alongside John Hurt, and he was the voice of the Lonely Water in one of the most famous and scarring British PSAs of the 70s. However, Pleasence never shook off his horror credentials and kept on starring in low-budget horror films. This came to a head in 1978's Halloween, where his portrayal of Dr. Loomis earned him the Saturn Award for Best Actor, and from then on, he was hot in the world of horror and exploitation with roles in Escape from New York, The Demonsville Terror, Prince of Darkness, Phantom of Death, Phenomena, and the Halloween sequels. Whilst Pleasence was very comfortable with his horror career, there's also a question of what if. Number 8, Michael Massee. Whilst Michael Massee has starred in quite a few major projects in the latter years of his career, such as The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 and Catwoman, starring in 1994 goth action horror flick The Crow, severely hurt him and his career in the 1990s. Massee played Funboy in the iconic picture, and sadly, he was the one who pulled the trigger on the gun that killed Brandon Leigh. In a 2005 interview, Massee stated that he still has recurring nightmares about the event, saying, "I don't think you ever get over something like that." As a result of this unfortunate accident, he returned to New York after filming, took a year off from acting, and never saw the movie once it was finished. However, this didn't deter Massee from the film industry completely, and though shaken, he took small roles in films such as The Lowlife, Seven, and Tales from the Hood. From there, he steadily worked his way up in Hollywood, finding a new life in the world of comic book movies, which began with a role in Catwoman and providing the voice of Bruce Banner in the Ultimate Avengers animated movies. If it were not for what happened on the set of The Crow, Massee could have done a lot more with his career, especially seeing how popular The Crow became. Nevertheless, the fact that he returned to acting afterwards is quite an uplifting tale of determination. Number 7, Janet Leigh. Janet Leigh was a rising star of Hollywood in the 1950s. After securing a contract from MGM, Leigh starred in big-budget Hollywood features such as The Romance of Rosie Ridge, Houdini, and Orson Welles' Touch of Evil. In 1960, Leigh accepted an offer to work with acclaimed British thriller director Alfred Hitchcock on his new movie, Psycho. However, working with Hitchcock and his demented approach to filmmaking traumatized Janet Leigh for many years afterwards. For example, because of the film's famous shower scene, Leigh developed a phobia of taking showers that lasted until her death. Aside from a cameo in the 1960 comedy Pepe alongside her then-husband Tony Curtis, Leigh took a hiatus from acting after what Psycho did to her mentally. However, Leigh would come to look back on Psycho fondly as the role that defined a career. The question remains whether this was a good or bad thing, because Leigh was sought after for horror films in the years to come, with roles in Night of the Lepus, The Fog, and Halloween H2O. Granted that by the 70s, Leigh's busiest career days were behind her, there's nonetheless a slight question as to whether passing up Psycho might have helped her and her career in the long run. Number 6. Christopher Behling. Christopher Robert Bob Behling started his career in 1949 with a role in the Ford Theatre Hour, an anthology Broadway series. From there, his career grew with a role in The Devil's Men with Donald Pleasence, Italian movie The Hook, and Dirty Harry's sequel, The Enforcer. However, Behling always had hang-ups about his acting roles. Despite having a few great movies on his resume in the 1970s, Behling's self-doubt caused him to take a role in the notorious video nasty Island of Death, when he was at the peak of his career and the lowest point of his life. Nico Mastorakis, director of Island of Death, has gone on record saying that working with Behling was a difficult experience because Behling was fighting various personal demons at the time. However, starring in Nico's exploitation disaster piece ruined Behling's career and prevented him from garnering the stardom he could have achieved. Behling starred in a few low-budget horror and erotic movies after Island of Death, with his final appearance being a bit part in 1983's Cujo. After that movie, Behling sadly died by suicide. Mastorakis attests this to Behling's constant self-doubt about his career and sexuality, but nonetheless his death in 1983 tragically meant that Behling never became the star he could have been. Number 5. Marlon Brando. A grand maestro of acting, Marlon Brando is the star of many iconic movies with roles such as The Godfather, Guys and Dolls, Apocalypse Now, The Wild One, and 1978's Superman. In his 60-year career, he garnered a plethora of awards for his realism acting style and outstanding performances. However, it started to become evident in the late 1970s that as well as being an amazing actor, Marlon Brando was incredibly difficult to work with. Whilst filming Superman and The Godfather, Brando refused to learn his lines, and the production crews had to find clever ways of putting his lines in front of him, such as having them taped around Robert Duvall's stomach in The Godfather, or written on the baby's nappy in Superman. However, 1996's The Island of Dr. Moreau featured Brando at his most eccentric. The film was already a nightmare to get off the ground, but Brando didn't do the production any favours. His tantrums, clashes, and straight-up mad decisions whilst shooting delayed production many times. The result was an almighty mess that caused writer-director Richard Stanley to be fired by the production studio. As a result, Brando's career was near enough over as well. Nobody wanted to work with him after that. His next few roles before his death were in an independent drama, a Canadian black comedy, a Frank Oz heist film with Robert De Niro. Number 4. Camille Keaton. Camille Keaton, distant relative of legend Buster Keaton, was an American actress and model whose career is made infamous for one movie role, that of Jennifer Hills in the infamous nasty I Spit on Your Grave. Before then, Keaton's career started off decently with a debut as the titular role in the 1972 Italian giallo What Have You Done to Solange. From there, she starred as the lead role in horror film Tragic Ceremony, and it seemed like she was going up in the world of Italian cinema. However, her decision to star in Mayor Zarchi's notorious video nasty stopped her career in its tracks. The poor reception from Zarchi's well-meaning fable meant that her career back in America was heavily stunted. For example, her next role was in a 1982 Filipino martial arts film where she was credited as Girl on Toilet. She never saw another lead role after that, not in America nor Italy. Her next big role came in 2012 with Rob Zombie's horror flop The Lords of Salem. Not even her marriage to Sidney Luft, Hollywood impresario and third husband to Judy Garland, saved her career from doom. Camille Keaton came back into the public eye in 2019, however, because she was working with ex-husband Zarchi in a sequel to the original I Spit on Your Grave, Deja Vu. Number 3. Lindsey Lohan. Lindsey Lohan enjoyed a rocketing career in the early 2000s. Her iconic role in 1998's Parent Trap made her a Hollywood starlet, which led to producers praising her talents in an evolving world of teenage cinema. Not content with her Disney stardom, Lohan became a teen idol with multiple music releases and started taking roles in more mature movies such as Mean Girls, Just My Luck, and Chapter 27. However, a role in the 2007 horror movie I Know Who Killed Me was the point her career turned from exciting to embarrassing. By this time, her chaotic personal life started to seriously affect her abilities as an actor. During the shooting of the movie, Lohan was in rehabilitation for her drug use only coming out during the day to shoot. Also, the paparazzi wouldn't leave her alone whilst filming, with some photographers ending up in the background of the film by accident. I Know Who Killed Me was an immense flop with disappointing box office figures and poor reviews from critics. Lohan's career began to freefall, and this movie proved that people were starting to pay more attention to her antics rather than her film work. Whilst the movie wasn't a nightmare solely because of her, 2007 marked the start of court-ordered rehabilitation of multiple DUI offences for Lohan, creating a poor reputation. However, I am happy to say that in the years since, she has begun a return to form, appearing in recent films, and seems to be doing much better. We wish her luck. Number 2. Bela Lugosi. Everybody recognises Bela Lugosi as the face of Dracula. His portrayal of the literary monster in 1931 defined what a vampire should be: hypnotic, strange, and eccentric. Whenever anybody imitates Dracula, they are most certainly imitating Bela Lugosi. No other actor could play the part of the great vampire so well, and that was the main problem with Lugosi's career. He started in Hungary in the late 1910s, but a Broadway performance of Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1927 helped him move up in the world of cinema, leading to his role in Todd Browning's adaptation. Lugosi's Hungarian accent and eccentric acting style made the character come alive, but it unfortunately led to typecasting, which limited the roles he was called upon to play. Whilst his fellow monster actor Boris Karloff was receiving big parts at the time, Lugosi had to settle for small roles just to keep his head above water. A drug addiction in the 1940s, stemming from sciatic neuritis, didn't help his chances with the film industry, and by the end he could only find work by starring in Ed Wood's infamously terrible movies. Lugosi died in 1956, and, in a tribute to the only role that he respected and was respected for, he was buried in his famous Dracula costume. Number 1. Linda Blair. It's fair to say that working on The Exorcist affected the lives of everyone involved. Backlash from Christian communities and the apparent curse meant that people just weren't the same afterwards. Poor Linda Blair was one of the few who were severely affected by the film, as after her role as the possessed Regan McNeil, she struggled in the film business. Blair received a lot of scrutiny thanks to the film, which resulted in death threats. It got so bad that Warner Brothers had to bring Blair on a press tour just to prove that she was an ordinary teenager and not some spawn of Satan. However, NBC picked up Linda Blair after The Exorcist and decided to capitalize on the shocking success of the movie by placing her in the film Born Innocent, the highest-rated TV movie to air in the US. As the years went on, Blair found herself starring in low-budget horrors and exploitation films such as Savage Streets, Chained Heat, Hell Night, and Witchery during a very low point in her life. These films started earning her multiple Golden Raspberry Awards for Worst Actress, and nobody could take her seriously. Her career could have been so much different had she not agreed to star in The Exorcist. However, these days, Blair has found a new retrospective on her career in horror by starring in multiple documentaries and parodies, and even featuring a cameo appearance in the recent The Exorcist Believer.